Welcome to the Chris Hanna Show.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Chris Hanna Show. I am so excited today to welcome this guest. I have known this gentleman for about a year and a bit now, and I've had the pleasure of working with him. He is an absolutely unbelievable father. He's an absolutely unbelievable friend. He knows a lot about business, a lot about being an entrepreneur. I'm going to read out some of his bio that he has here. His name is Kurt Warner. He is the founder of Life Balance Mentor. He's a partner with JFK Properties. He started his real estate investment journey in 2018. He spent 8 years trading stocks, options, forex. He became really an instrumental part of the success of JFK Properties, really focusing on multifamily and commercial properties in Northern Ontario. His strengths are his ability to analyze properties, to uncover opportunities. He's probably the calmest person that I've ever met. Nothing can actually rattle this guy. I think that's probably why he's got a company called Life Balance. His willingness to go after any sort of deal, any sort of opportunity with that can-do attitude is something that's unmatched. He has, really started to share more of his experiences and his lessons that he has learned with other entrepreneurs and other business owners. And here's the thing that I find wild, is that he is only in his 40s still, because he is the proud father of 3 boys. He's got a grandson. He's got a granddaughter. His goal is to create a legacy for his family that can carry on for generations to come while working, and I love this, on a beach in a tropical paradise. Welcome to the show, Kurt. I am so happy to have you here, and this has been, I would say, a long time coming. We've talked about this for a long time, so I'm excited to have you here.
Well, thank you very much, Chris. I'm excited to be here. And after that introduction, hopefully I can live up to it for your audience.
I think you can. So, how about I let the audience hear, in your words, a little bit more about your background, your story, how you really got started with this entrepreneurship journey. I don't know if you want to go back to when you walked and talked and you went to Brock. We both went to Brock University. Or when did that journey start? Let's kind of dive into it.
I would say the initial journey did start right after Brock. So I left in 2004, got my first job doing sales for a local newspaper there.
Like you selling subscriptions or something like that, or ads?
Selling ad space, different businesses in the area. And it was a startup kind of newspaper. So I was like the last salesperson in. So obviously all the big businesses were taken. So I had to try to find my niche, which I focused on the downtown core of St. Catharines with more of the small mom and pop top operations. So I thought I was starting to do well, build relationships, did like a full, double page spread, and thought I was on my way. After a couple months, boss calls me into the office on a Thursday. Think it's just a normal, pep talk, sales meeting before I hit the road. And she's like, "We got to let you go."
Just didn't see it coming?
Didn't see it coming. So, finished university, going into summer, no job, trying to figure out what to do. I was a psychology major, which means nothing in the real world.
Yeah. Totally.
And at that point, I realized that there really isn't such a thing as job security.
Yes.
But at the same time, was trying to figure out, okay, what are the next steps? So I was lucky enough that I was managing property for my mom. She owned a condo in Scarborough, and I'd been managing that throughout university. So I was able to make an income just managing that, not really, knowing what I was doing, but doing well enough. And I went to a wedding with my girlfriend at the time. Her best friend, she traveled all over the world, Canada, US, sometimes internationally, seemed to be doing well. And we're at this wedding. I'm like, "What do you do exactly?" And she told me she worked for a company that taught people how to invest in real estate and then in financial markets. And she said, "We're actually hiring right now." I'm like, "Okay, I know a little bit about real estate. I'll apply." And so I applied, got the job. So I had an opportunity to travel. And at first I took it as just what it was, a job.
Yeah. Then just kind of pay the bills, right?
Exactly. But connecting with the different, trainers and speakers and mentors over the first, I would say, year, maybe year and a half, I started to realize that there was more to real estate than just managing, a condo or managing a townhouse. So in 2007, myself and a couple other people I worked with decided, hey, we'll band together, form a company, Cornerstone Ventures, and we'll start buying real estate. And we were young and just dumb and just, thought we could rule the world in a couple of years as real estate investors. So did our first deal. It was a pre-foreclosure property in Vaughan, so just outside of Toronto. And we had it appraised at $740,000. We bought it for $590,000. So we thought we were rock stars, but we didn't listen to the people that were trainers and mentors and coaches on staging it, on curb appeal, selecting the right realtor. So we ended up losing money on it months later because it took forever to sell.
Now, did you use other people's money when you purchased it, or was it your own? You were trying to.
We used 100% financing. So I actually remember, and I was in my 20s at the time, walking into the bank to deposit a check, and the bank teller's like, "Did you just sell it properly?" I'm like, "No, we just bought one." So we bought it extremely well, where we actually, got 100% financing on the 740 appraisal. So we actually walked out with money after buying, but then that money evaporated because it's hard money, high interest, and over time. So that was kind of the first experience of entering, the field of being an entrepreneur and business owner and investor. So that was kind of the start. And after that experience, I'm like, that's it. Real estate's awful. Never doing it again. I'm going to start
burned once and you give up and you're done.
I was done. Again, being young and just not understanding and not having like the right, I guess mindset at the time of, okay, just because you fail once as an entrepreneur doesn't mean it's the end. As an entrepreneur, if you don't fail and fail and fail and fail again, then you're doing something wrong. It means you're not pushing yourself, you're not stretching. So I went into the financial markets. And so I actually took more courses to learn how to trade stocks and options, because it's not just, hey, I'm going to buy a house. There's a lot to it. And so I started trading after the financial crash. So my first
good time to kind of get in. You're buying low.
Yeah, which I didn't know at the time. You knew the market was crashing, but nobody knew where the bottom was. Right. At least I didn't know where the bottom was. And I just happened to start trading in, I think it was late February. My first.
Were you self-taught in terms of training, or were you or did you actually go and learn with some mentorship or something else?
Yeah, I went through courses for, I'd say, about 8 months. Worked with a mentor as well for a few months prior to doing my first trade. Paper traded, so practiced, which I think is very important to do if you're getting into financial markets. And so, started trading, and I traded actively from 2009 through 2017. And, did well, had ups and downs throughout the time. But the one thing that I realized is that it wasn't something I could leave behind. It's something I could teach my kids who were young at the time, but it's not something I could actually leave behind. And I was also spending a ton of time doing it. So I don't know if, you experience this as an entrepreneur, and I'm sure a lot of people as entrepreneurs, that when you start a business, regardless of what it is, you're putting in so much time that there's other aspects of life that you're missing out on. And so I felt that I was missing out on, a lot of things, like seeing the kids grow up and just, friends and family and health and everything like that. So at that point, I decided to stop. And when I first stopped, it was like an itch that I needed to scratch. Like, I need to do something. Like, I had a job, but that just was 9 to 5, kids, obviously, and I was married at the time. But there was always that itch to do something else. Mm-hmm. So fast forward a year later, in 2018, in the summer, I was at lunch with two of my friends, and we'd always talked about becoming investors, starting a business, doing something. And I think it happened when we were all kind of sick and tired of our jobs at the same time. And we said, why not real estate? And my initial thought was,
not again, right? You're kind of almost having the right conversation on the right day, but it's about a topic in an area that you've been burned before.
Yeah.
So how do they convince you to jump into the real estate game again?
I think what it was, I hadn't matured from, 2007 down 2018, having kids as well, and gaining that perspective of, I want to be able to build something that I can leave behind. And just saying, okay, that's something that I know, because I've seen so many people do really well in real estate over the years, that I'm like, okay, maybe it's our time. So we decided to go through classes, do it the right way. get incorporated. And that was in 2018 in December when we got incorporated, and we did our first deal in April of 2019.
And that's with JFK Properties, right?
And that was with JFK Properties, yeah. And we're still together to this day.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think I know the story, but JFK is just the initial of each member of the team, right?
Yeah, we're really creative.
Yeah.
So it's Jerry, Faraz, and Kurt. And I think Faraz was the one that said, why don't we just call ourselves JFK Properties? I'm like, okay. And I'm thinking, as I'm searching for a website, the URL and all this stuff and going through incorporation, I'm like, there's no way this is available. And it was.
That is a hard thing. It's interesting you bring that up. I'm going to segue for a little bit here on this. Is that like when people are coming up with an idea, they think about a business, they start thinking about what's the name. A lot of people don't take the time to actually go and look for a domain to start to actually think about that, right? They're like, oh, is this actually available or not? Or you spend a ton of time just pumping out names and checking and looking, right? Most people don't want to have a numbered corp is what they're kind of referred to as, right? But I remember thinking about that in 2018 as well. When I was trying to, build my first, I was like, what do I choose? And it took me a long time to narrow it down. Because when you first start out, it can be expensive if you pick the wrong name too, when you're trying to buy some of these domains. Like they're really expensive, but some of them are super cheap, but you got to get creative. So yeah, it's interesting. I think a lot of people forget about that, how important a website is, but also just to get a domain registered.
It is super important. And I think that's one of my hidden talents is like, I own so many domains. It's crazy. But I was watching a video with Layla Hermosi the other day and talking about the entrepreneur. Yeah. And how you have this idea, you buy the domain, but it never becomes a business. So I've always been doing that. So I own like, I want to say about 10 to 15 domains that are sitting there that have a business idea behind it, but just timing. So there's other things kind of to come over time. But now I think I'm more structured in, okay, well, this one we can use here, this one we can use here. And a lot of what I've already bought, I'm trying to tie into what is already existing in some way, whether it's a landing page, whether it's a spin-off business. So kind of planned out for a long term of different businesses that can come about.
Well, also though, buying website names is a business too. There are people who actually will buy and flip and try and sell that stuff too, right? So it could be a little side hustle if you want to continue to expand that empire, maybe get the kids to run it or something.
Yeah, that would be good. Except it would be like Fortnite.com. Sorry, that's taken.
Yeah, that's not going to work. Yeah, absolutely. So you go through, you are part of JFK Properties. You're starting to build out that portfolio, focusing, I think, primarily in Northern Ontario, right?
Yeah, Northern Ontario and multifamily and commercial as well.
What were some kind of early lessons that you started to learn then as you started going through this real estate journey again, but obviously with the maturity and a lot more experience? Like, what were some key takeaways that you had?
I'd say the one big thing was patience. Not to jump from an investment standpoint. I think also as any entrepreneur is not just to jump on the very first opportunity because you're like, okay, I need to make money, but just to be a little patient. So we actually looked at about 100 properties before we actually ended up closing on our first one. One other lesson is going up to Sudbury in the winter, not a good idea.
Yeah, for listeners who are not familiar with where Sudbury is, it's Northern Ontario, and in the winter there's a lot of snow there.
A lot of snow, and we went to see one property. I remember, and I think there's a picture somewhere. I have no idea, but I'm 6'4", and I stepped in snow, and the snow almost was at my waist.
Yeah, that's insane. I would be over my head because I am not even close to 6'4".
But I think the big lessons, definitely patience and building a proper team. So we were fortunate with our realtor. He actually flew back to do showings for us the first time we went up there from Florida. So obviously going from warm and sunny to several feet of snow. But we built that relationship. And because of that relationship, we were able to find mortgage brokers. We were able to find a property manager. So now we had a really solid team and kind of a base, which allowed us to kind of grow within that market. And we also were in Sudbury at a time where everybody down here in the GTA was thinking we were crazy for investing in Sudbury. Most people were not in the GTA, but maybe they were outside, maybe down to Windsor where you are, London and kind of places like that. But we just found the numbers didn't work as well as they did up north. The other thing I'd say that was an important lesson for us, I think it was our second time there. And, the three of us, we'd known each other for years. Everything we do, we always have fun doing it. Sometimes maybe a little too much fun. But we would go and walk through multifamily properties with different realtors, and we would be joking with each other and just having a good time with it. Most people think of investors, of kind of stuffy and old and very like serious all the time, when we were the complete opposite of that. So we went out to dinner the night before we left, and coming back from the washroom, there was a table of what we found out later was realtor. And they're like, "Have you heard of JFK Properties?" I'm like, "Why are they talking about us? What did we do?" But because of just how we approached our business and how we tried to, build relationships, even if we weren't going to be buying a property, that our name spread, after 2 visits in that market. So I think
As
that's
long as it's for good reason that it
yeah,
spreads, then absolutely, that's amazing. That's awesome. So
no, absolutely.
you start this business, which is you're still got going on there with JFK Properties. What's
Mhm.
next? What happens after that?
So obviously that's still going on. And then more recently, and this is probably in the past few months, is that, kind of had a transition from, being kind of an entrepreneur slash investor and also an employee to just focusing on investing and being an entrepreneur. So the first business that we started called Thrive Community with one person I've known for many years. And really, our goal was to help people that are looking at investing in real estate or get into entrepreneurship and just how to thrive. So we started a Facebook group that has grown to almost 600 people in about 2 months,
Wow.
and really not doing any advertising. It's just, again, those relationships that myself, him, and a few other people that we have as kind of mentors and trainers and partners within that group, just reaching out to our networks and saying, "Hey, we just want to provide you guys with value and education and motivation and help and support as you kind of venture into real estate." So that business is, starting to grow, and we really started with nothing at this point in time, and now we're starting to do a little bit more formally from an education standpoint, which we're really looking forward to kicking off this quarter. The other business is a funny one. So you mentioned it in the beginning, life balance mentor. And so while I'm in this transition period, I'm thinking to myself, okay, what do I want to do? And the idea of consulting had always kind of been in the back of my mind, because I kind of do a co-mentorship with a good friend of mine. And he's like, "You know what? You should really do like get into consulting or do something in that space to help other businesses." I'm like, okay, that sounds pretty good. And so I thought, well, why not tie it back to real estate? Like I could do like consulting for deal analysis and kind of help people analyze their multifamily properties and turn that into something. And so I'm with my girlfriend, I'm mapping that out. I'm thinking of an app as well. So taking my spreadsheet, turning that into app. We have, Thrive Community that's going. I have the real estate business. I'm like, maybe I want to wholesale as well. And so I have all these ideas. I'm sitting there trying to plan out, what my days, what my weeks are going to be like, where I'm going to focus my time, where I'm going to focus my energy. I also coach basketball, so a lot of things going on. And so when I'm showing her what I'm kind of building and what my week is going to look like and what my days are going to look like, she's like, "Why don't you teach other people how to do that?" I'm like, so my reaction was, fuck that.
Yeah.
that was it. And it's just not something I felt I wanted to do, was to teach people how to find balance in life. And especially as entrepreneurs, instead of spending like 16, 20 hours a day and forgetting the entire world, but to actually structure your days properly where you can be productive and effective, but you're also not ignoring your friends, family, relationships, your health, and everything in between. So the
It's
next,
quite easy for an entrepreneur to do that, right? Because they will go, I'll use my poker term that I always say, all in on their business, but then at the sacrifice of relationships, family, other commitments that they have. It is hard to stay balanced. So what are some of the ways that you help somebody with that? Like, what does that look like?
so as far as helping people, like I do offer like group coaching, so a group mentorship, where I'll take a small group and we'll meet weekly and just kind of go through. Like I've developed my own planner that is really focused more for an entrepreneur. Also using something called the Wheel of Life, which is essentially looking at whatever like 7 or 8 aspects of life that are really important to you and rating them 0 to 10 and doing that once a week. And what most people find, especially entrepreneurs, is you're probably really high on the business side. And there might be a couple other areas. Maybe it's leisure. Maybe if you're into health and fitness, maybe it's that. Maybe you are a family person, so it's that. But then you have these other parts of your life that are really low. Maybe it's, knowledge and education. Maybe it's leisure time or your hobbies. And for entrepreneurs, it is very difficult to really, dedicate enough time and energy to everything. And that's not to say that, if you have, a full day outside of sleep, that everything needs to be equal time. But if you look at your priorities, if your family is a priority for you, for example, and you're spending half an hour a day with your family, then you're probably not going to rate that too high at a 10. So then it's like, what can I do next week to incorporate into my schedule more time with my family? Now, saying that, people are like, well, why do I need to plan time with my family or my spouse or my partner? And as you mentioned, like entrepreneurs, like when you're in it, you don't realize how much time you're actually spending on your business, whether it is actual work on it or thinking about it. So
How
by
does somebody know in your experience that like maybe things are getting truly out of whack? Like maybe they don't have access yet to the wheel of life, right? But how do they what are some of the signs that, things are out of balance here? It's something's not working.
So if you come home and your kids are like, who are you?
Yeah, that's an obvious one. Yeah.
That's one. You'll start to feel it. I think part of it is also stress. If you're, with a significant other, hopefully, you have a relationship where they can let you know. If your friends make a joke of, you're never out, you never see you anymore. So there are definitely signs, but I would say the best thing to do is actually do some self-reflection and take time, write things down and look at where you are spending your time. Also, if you feel that you aren't present. So let's say that you do go to dinner with your significant other and you spend most of the time, hopefully you're not doing this, on your phone, checking emails or looking at, your social media, or even if your mind is elsewhere on your business, then that shows that you're really living at a balance and it will catch up with you over time. If you were going to the gym on a regular basis and all of a sudden you stopped, or your eating habits really change and you're eating more than you should, like all these are signs that something is not working right with you. So, it's important to take a pause and track everything. The only
Yeah,
way
I
you
just
can see
recently took a
progress is
pause
track
for
it.
myself, and it made a world of difference to come back with more energy. To
Yeah.
take a few weeks, because I needed a few weeks after feeling like I've just been go for a couple of years, just to step away. And if I didn't do that, I think it would take more of a toll, probably on my own health, but also probably the health of my relationship with my wife.
Yeah.
And I think that's important, especially as you're a business owner, as an entrepreneur. Like that relationship that you have with your loved ones, your family, is so critical. Which you've
Absolutely.
mentioned family quite a bit. And I know you're such a family man, but I'm assuming this is the answer I'm going to get to this question. But maybe not. But like, what is kind of that big source of inspiration or that motivation for you as an entrepreneur? And I know it links back to your family, but
Well, definitely links back to family. And I think it's kind of shifted to, especially over the past few months. It is actually service. So my goal for 2023, one of my good friends who's, a life coach, who's amazing. We had breakfast together and she said, well, what is one word you'd use to describe 2022? And I said, growth. And then she asked, well, what word would you like to be able to describe 2023 as, if we went full circle? And I said, service. And it, it caught me by surprise when I said it, but then looking at everything that I'm doing, it is about trying to help more people, whether it's trying to help more people get into real estate and, become successful investors, whether it's helping them become entrepreneurs, whether it's them, finding balance in life between, work life or entrepreneur life. So I'd say that is really what is driving me now, is not, and it's can be a challenge for entrepreneurs, but not focusing on the financial return, but just focusing on serving that mission of helping.
well, there's that whole saying that like if you give more, you're going to get more.
Mhm.
And I think that like that's a big part of the service piece as well. It's like there's that reciprocal kind of nature that ultimately happens too. Obviously you're in kind of in the early stage here of like building out these businesses. And you've already got the other business that you've got from the JFK Properties perspective. You
Mhm.
could get in a time machine and kind of go back, whether it's a few months, whether it's a couple of years. Like, what kind of piece of advice would you give a younger version of Kurt as you're
Mhm.
going through this process?
I would definitely go back to 2007 and say, don't quit, don't give up. You got to keep pushing through. That's definitely one piece of advice. So I've actually taken that now moving forward, where I know it's going to take time to help build thrive community. I know it's going to take time to help build life balance mentor to where they need to be. But just because there's a hurdle doesn't mean that I'm going to stop. It's just jump over that hurdle and then get ready for the next one and just keep pushing forward.
It almost feels like that's almost like a problem that happens with a lot of entrepreneurs. Well, they will have an idea, maybe they'll start, but they get a little bit of resistance. And the ones who really make it are the ones who keep moving, who can push past the obstacle. Because when you're a business owner or you're starting out with a business as a solopreneur or entrepreneur, you're going to have a lot of shit that's going to fly at you and a lot of
Yeah.
problems, and things aren't going to work out. And maybe you have a webinar and you expect people are going to show, and maybe you're the only one on it, or maybe it's just a relative or a loved one or something, right? How do you keep that focus to actually push forward, to move past when shit happens, like when it doesn't go well?
That's a very good question, because it was something that a group I was mentoring last week went through. And I think I took it for granted. Like you probably as well. Like we're very motivated, and, you know, motivated might be the wrong word, but if something challenging happens, it's not going to stop us from pushing and moving forward. But that is something that we've learned and developed over time. So speaking with a group of people that were saying, I'm not motivated, or, I'll get up and then I'll take a nap, or I'll put on Netflix. I'm like, you watch TV. um, but I'd say it's action is the one word that I said to them. So if you have a roadblock, if you have a failure in your business, you have to just keep taking those little actions that are going to get you to where you want to be. So it's not only about writing down like your annual goal or your quarterly goal. It's what are the actions you're going to take on a daily, weekly basis to get to where you want to go. So like I go through it as well. Still, someday, like yesterday, I was like, okay, well, past a couple of days, I'm like, what do I do with this product? Because I want to introduce a new product for Life Balance Mentor, and just kind of struggling to figure out where to go, what to do. So I just sat down in front of the computer and I started typing out a plan. And next thing you know, I had my whole plan done. I'm like, oh, that was so much easier than I thought. But it was that action of just saying, okay, I'm going to start. And if I start, then it's just going to continue, because, you don't start a business as an entrepreneur or an investor without having a desire for something more. And I think if your desire is something short term, then you need to look longer. You need to look at, 5 years or 10 years of who you want to become, who you want that business to be, and then taking the actions on a daily basis to get there.
Is it fair to say that not every person can be an entrepreneur? Or do you think everyone has the opportunity that they could do it?
I think everybody has the opportunity. But I think for some people, they might lack the belief in themselves more so than anything else. Because even if you're somebody that has a job, if you're working for somebody else, you're showing up, you're taking action every day. You're getting in your car, you're driving to somewhere, you're doing the work. Now, if you took that same kind of those same actions and put it into something that you created, why couldn't you be? If you're able to show up and work, 9 to 5 or whatever your shift is, just taking that time and taking those actions and putting to something that's yours, why not? But you have to believe you can do it.
I think the word there, when you say something that's yours, that kind of triggers something for me that I think I'm curious to get your perspective on. That a lot of people want to become their own boss, their own business owner, because
Mm-hmm.
they don't want to work for somebody else. They want to implement their own vision. Talk to
Mm.
me about the transition from being like an employee mindset to being like a business owner, and what that's been like for you throughout your career.
I think it's been interesting because I've been in both for so long. But what's happened, I think over the years, especially when I was trading, like I was trading for me, myself, I wasn't trading anybody else's capital. So I started to take the habits of being an entrepreneur and trying to build something my own into work. So I never approached work as, oh, well, I got to show up 9 to 5 and I'm just going to sit in this bucket of, when I was a marketing manager or when I was a sales manager, I was always interested in the whole business. How does the business operate? How does it generate income? What kind of expenses do we have? How can we, try to be more efficient? How can we expand the business? How can we grow? Who's our client? So I think it doesn't matter what role you have within a business. You can operate within that role as an entrepreneur. And I think people that do that can then not only, if they just want to work for somebody else for the rest of their life, you can actually advance your career by actually showing that you're more engaged with that business or that company outside of your role. And then for those people that have a desire to have their own thing, that's going to teach you the skills needed to then make that transition. Because a lot of entrepreneurs, they might have a passion or they might have a skill set. They have no idea how to run a business. Mm-hmm. So a safer environment, it's unfortunate to say, is when you're in that environment for somebody else, for a company where you can start to
kind of do it with somebody else's money and like the risk on their side, you can learn, right?
Yeah, but you get the education. And it's not that you're going to make the decisions that are going to impact the finances of that business, but you can certainly learn what do businesses look at. What matters? What are the expenses? I've had several conversations with independent contractors, in career that I started in 2004, that didn't understand, well, how come we can't get paid more? Like we're bringing in this much money. I'm like, well, these are a list of expenses and we do need to, have some kind of profit. So therefore this is what we can pay. That's it. It's numbers.
You mentioned the word education quite a bit. Entrepreneurs, business owners, anybody who's really even a leader, it's important that they kind of educate themselves. Talk to me about some of the lessons you've learned kind of investing in education, and why do you think it's so important to continue to invest in yourself?
Absolutely. Like, I think we can always be growing. Like part of my routine every morning is to listen to podcasts that can learn something from, can inspire me.
Do you have a favorite that you listen to quite like religiously, like often?
Right now, I have a list of them.
Okay.
So I listen to Alex Hormozy a lot, Layla Hormozy, Ed Milet, Lewis Howes, Stephen Bartlett, and Rob Dial. Those would be my top lists for podcasts to listen to. And it really depends on the mood. There are others that I'm finding right now, like Think Media, from like, now that I'm getting into this whole content development, social media, and more marketing for myself. I'm finding that I'm gravitating towards that as well. But again, it's just, how can I learn more about anything, really? I think that the moment that you start being closed to education is the moment that you start shrinking. So, if somebody says, hey, here's this, new AI, for example, years ago, I might have been like, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to pay attention to that and miss the boat. Like I remember when Bitcoin.
And don't sleep on AI. Don't sleep on new technology. Definitely. That I love that kind of stuff too. Like I am all about it. But you have to embrace the new stuff.
You do, and then educate yourself about it. If you're like, I have no idea what that is, educate yourself. I think we're definitely in an age now, and I think we've been here for a while, where you can learn pretty much anything you want to for free on YouTube. Now, I will say this: that is not the only place to learn, and it's going to take you a lot longer, to become an expert trying to learn that way versus paying for, whether it's education, training, coaching, mentorship. Invest the money in it, but from an initial standpoint, just to understand the general concept, that's a great place to start.
Well, I think it's an interesting comment that you make, is that, a lot of people could just go and watch some YouTuber with, a huge following, huge channel, and maybe pick up some nuggets along the way, but you're just really passive and you're watching it. The benefit of joining somebody, whether it's a coach, a consultant, a mentorship group, or community, is that stuff is curated and you're getting that expertise. And that expertise is really going to help shrink that time gap that you have, basically from learning it on your own to actually learning the lesson from somebody who's been there before, who's ahead of you on the curve. I think it's a big thing that a lot of people need to remember, is that something that's free might not be as valuable as something you actually have to pay for. When you pay for it, You're going to get a lot more value.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned all these people that you listen to in terms of your podcast, but if you could pick one person whether it's a past or a current business leader, entrepreneur, somebody who inspires you that you could have dinner with. Just pick their brain for a couple hours, enjoy a nice, drink of, glass of wine or your favorite drink. Who would you want to have dinner with, just one-on-one, you and them, past, present, living, dead?
I would say right now, just because I've consumed so much of his content and it's really formed a foundation for what I'm trying to build now, would be Alex Hormozi. I would say one of the coolest moments I've had in my life is I had probably about 5 minutes one-on-one with Robert Kiyosaki when he was in Canada many years ago on a book tour. And we were in kind of a ballroom. He was going to go speak on stage. And my boss said, can you go make sure he's okay? So it was me, Robert, and his bodyguard, who was like bigger than I am. I'm 6'4", just in this room, and just had a chance to ask him a couple of questions and just listen. And that was, a surreal experience. So I think having the opportunity to sit down and have dinner with somebody that, is where you ultimately want to be would be awesome. I'd pick Alex right now for sure.
Yeah, Alex is he's doing something quite special, him and his wife there, Layla. Like it's unreal what they've been able to do and the presence that they're building. Just the inspiration that they're having for other content creators is also self-evident when you see a lot of similar style videos and content that's coming out. I know they're big proponents of just continuing just to build out the business and take action and do what needs to be done. And I think that's what more and more entrepreneurs need right now, is they sometimes need inspiration. Like the last couple of years have been really tough for a lot of business owners. A lot of business owners have had to kind of give up on their dream, and they maybe had to go and find the safe bet of, being employed again. Now, some of those ones who have done that, they're going through challenges as well, because there's a lot of, challenges and turnover and terminations and stuff happening as well. But yeah, I think that when you can live life on your terms and you can do what you want on your own schedule, that's really where it's at. That's where I think it's important to kind of go all in on yourself, because you had mentioned earlier about getting fired. There really is no such thing as loyalty in today's world. And, you might as well control your own fate. So I'm curious, Kurt, for our listeners here, can you share where they can find out more information about you? How can they follow your journey? How can they learn more about what you're doing with your businesses as well? What's some of those information where they can find you?
I'd say for Thrive Community, we have a Facebook group. That's probably the best place to interact with not only myself, but other trainers, mentors, and other members of the community. So it is Thrive Community on Facebook. For Life Balance Mentor, go to lifebalancementor.com. I also have the Life Balance Mentor podcast, which is live every Sunday morning at 8 a.m. And actually looking forward to adding some pretty cool stuff probably in the coming weeks for that as well. Also on all social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter.
I can find you everywhere.
TikTok. I'm also on TikTok. I can't
You're
believe
on TikTok. Wow. Okay.
Can't believe I'm
everywhere
on TikTok.
now. Doing a couple
everywhere.
dances here and there, or more serious stuff?
A little bit of more serious stuff, but I'm starting to realize that the more non-serious stuff gets more views. So we'll try to mix it up a little bit there as I, again, learn and grow and educate myself. And then JFK Properties, we have our JFK Companies website where you can get a hold of us there. But, that's just the investment side of the business.
Awesome. Well, again, I am glad that we were able to have you on today's episode of the Chris Hanna Show. Thank you for being on here. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing your insights. I think it's really going to help for other business owners and entrepreneurs who are out there. So thank you so much, Kurt, for being on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Chris Hanna Show. As always, the latest episodes are available to listen and subscribe to on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also follow The Chris Hanna Show on LinkedIn, Instagram, or Twitter. For more resources and solutions, including blog posts, toolkits, ebooks, speaking sessions, and more, visit chrishanna.ca today. We look forward to connecting again with you soon for another episode of The Chris Hanna Show.